Welcome, everyone. I am Tuni Shartner, the Executive Director of District Hall and Venture Cafe Providence. We really love co-hosting this monthly program with Avi Neville and Ophir from the Rhode Island Israel Collaborative and Annette from RIHub. We have a wonderful relationship or bridge that has already been built between Israel and Rhode Island, two mighty states. Little but mighty, and we think of this program as just another opportunity to continue to strengthen that bridge. So without further ado, we have a lot to cover. I'm going to hand it over to our dear friend, Avi Neville.
Hi, Tony. Hi, everybody. It's good to have you all on this Zoom event. A little bit, Rhode Island Israel Collaborative is a chamber of commerce that developed to build a relation between Israel and Rhode Island in business, academia, and research. I want to thank first to our team that produces every month, to Annette and Tuni, Avi, Alexandra, Jackie, Ellison, Amy, Ashley, Ophir. It takes a lot of work to organize and set it up. And so I'm really appreciative to all that team. Our next event will be, believe it or not, will be April 13, and that's going almost like more than half a year. So it's interesting and it's growing. I cannot start without starting, and unfortunately it's sad news. Last week we had an event with the Bird Foundation and with Dr. Shimrit Parkol-Finkel, and we had an amazing story of her life, of what she developed in eco-concrete, and we recorded it as well. And before yesterday, we got the awful news that she was going home on her scooter and got killed in a car accident. So for us, I want to dedicate this meeting to her memory. And we all so sorry about it, and sending condolence to her family and her partners and all who knew her. Okay, oh, no, that one starts a video. Okay, so there's a couple other things. We had Bird's event, and we realized that we have multiple companies and organizations that worked and received the Bird event. And I would like to say to the Israeli listeners and the Rhode Islanders, there is more that you can do by partnering. Bird Foundation is there, and we will help you to connect if you need. We continue to work on the Hispanic project. We are using Wix and Click2, an Israeli company, teaching Hispanic students on the Wix platform, and then helping small Rhode Island Hispanic businesses to gain access to the internet. It's a really nice project, and I'm so happy that it's continuing. Our trade mission to Israel, it's a virtual trade mission. It's coming soon. It's next, at the end of the month, we're starting the meetings. And that's another good example of collaboration between Israel and Rhode Island. We want to announce that we'll have the second Digital Health Conference on May 6th. The first one was a year and a half ago, and then because of COVID, we delayed it. But it's another good example of collaboration, and the first one definitely yield results. We have a quarterly program covering what's going on in economic in Israel with Dr. Nir Tzuk. And by that, I would just like to end, and again, thank everybody that participate, to our Israeli guests. And I want to mention Ophir, thank her for helping to sort them out. And it's a lot of calls, a lot of setting up. So thank you again to the team. And Annette, it's all yours. And I'm really anxious to hear about the companies. I think they are fascinating. Thank you.
Thank you. And I could not agree with you more, Avi. It takes a lot to set these up. And Ophir has done it again. You and Ophir have found 3 amazing companies The first two we're going to talk to have a lot to do with intelligence and gathering intelligence in new ways. The third one is really interesting invention around healthcare and all of us that may end up one day needing such a thing. So at the first company we're going to talk to, so how this works is we're going to take 10 minutes. We're going to hear from this company, hear their pitch, and then we're going to take 5 minutes for Q&A. So at that time, please feel free to ask your questions either in the chat, request if you'd like to speak out loud, that'd be terrific. And if there are no questions, I always have questions. So we'll get started with Tal Chrysler. And Tal is the co-founder and CEO of NoTraffic. NoTraffic is an Israeli-based company. They also have offices, I understand, in Palo Alto, California. So Tal, if you're ready to go, if you've got anything that you'd like to show us, and I believe you can share.
Sounds great. And thank you very much, Annette and Avi and the entire team here. It's a great pleasure to speak in front of all of you. Just give me 1 second to share my screen. All right, so just kind of a quick intro about us. We are a tech company, established the company in late 2017 with the goal of digitizing and connect traffic light grids to enable much better traffic flow, increase the level of safety, etc., but also to unlock various services that today are simply locked by the legacy traffic management industry and methodology. I'm proud to say that today most of our operation, or actually all of our operation, is in North America. The R&D is based in Israel. So we have people both in the West and the East Coast, serving today more than 1 million drivers per day and improving their quality of life. So let me take kind of a deeper dive to explain about our platform and solution. So most people are spending at least few minutes a day at signalized intersection, but most of us don't really aware of the fact that those devices haven't changed for the last 100 years or so, which is quite amazing in a way, because we sent a man to the moon in '69, but we're still waiting at 2 o'clock in the morning at a red light at the intersection, wondering how come. So the reason is that the methodology, the principle haven't changed whatsoever. Originally, traffic lights was, or if we're going back in the days, police officers were maneuvering the traffic with their hands. The next step in the evolution was to automate those police officers using traffic lights. And the idea was to simply allocate the green light time between the different approaches to enable better traffic flow and also to enable a safer environment. And as I mentioned before, since then, which happened almost 100 years back, not too much has changed. In every signalized intersection, we have what we call a traffic light controller, or so-called the brain of the intersection. Those devices still running fixed time plans, running on 25 megahertz. This is equivalent to computers that we used about 50 years back. There's no data that exists. I mean, the only data that exists in the intersections is very limited. The majority is coming from devices that call inductive loops. Again, another misconception. I'm going to break a few, but that's another one. It's not weight detector or anything like this. It simply works like a metal detector, and it can sense when there is a vehicle or there is an object on top. It doesn't know how many of them are there. It doesn't know what the speed, what the type, etc. It just knows that there is an indication of an object at the stop bar. By the way, the next step in the evolution was to replace those loops with cameras. Because the maintenance of the loop is very expensive. You have to trunch in the ground every few years and replace them, etc. So another misconception that I'm going to break, in most of the intersections that you see cameras, it's not a smart intersection. It's actually doing exactly the same thing, providing exactly the same input to the traffic light controller, whether there are objects at the stop bar or not. And the last thing is that most of the intersections today are not even connected to any networking. In fact, in a lot of the cities that we are working with, there are people that work once a month and push all the push buttons in every intersection around the city just to make sure that they are working properly, that they are functioning. So at the end of the day, today, more than 99% of the traffic lights across the US and worldwide are still working exactly based on this methodology. And I think it's kind of a shame, because if you think for a second, what could have happened if the grid was becoming connected and digital? I mean, how our life could have looked like. Drivers could have spent half of the time on the roads. Pedestrians could have get priorities next to school in the morning. Accidents can be detected in real time, and the grid could automatically dispatch first responders to arrive to the event as soon as possible by getting preemption or priority for the entire arterial, for the entire route. And at the same time, the grid could divert the traffic through alternative routes in order to avoid congestions even in first place. Public transportation can get priority, and even connected and autonomous vehicles and all these amazing things can get the information directly from the infrastructure and avoid about 90% of the accidents they are involved with. And this is what we are all about at NoTraffic. We are laying today those digital foundation for the future of urban mobility services. And we are doing it by deploying our proprietary platform that we've developed that allows us to transform any intersection around the world in less than 2 hours to cloud connected and digital one. And for the first time, connect between the physical world to the virtual layer. We have 3 main components in our platform. The first one is our data collection sensors that using artificial intelligence algorithms to collect data in a human eye level about all the road users that are approaching to the intersection. The second one is our connected edge compute device. And the third one is our cloud management system or center that's managing this entire system through the cloud. And those 3 components are complementing for the lack of communication, the lack of data, and the lack of compute power that I just spoke about before. So from the traffic management side, we completely automated this entire process. Traffic management is a very manual and labor-intensive domain. Still today, we're using traffic counts to retime the traffic light, manual traffic counts, so to retime the traffic lights, etc. Perhaps the easiest way to explain how the system works is to compare it to an autonomous vehicle. So when you're stepping into an autonomous vehicle, you simply need to define the address of where you want to go, and the vehicle takes you there. You don't need to touch the steering wheels, the pedals, etc. However, in order to achieve it, you need to take a regular vehicle and retrofit it with some sensor that collect data and some compute power that take decisions based on this data. We are taking here a very similar approach. We are retrofitting the intersection in a couple of hours. And the only thing that's left for the city to do is to define their policies or what they want to achieve, or in other words, where they want to go, right? If they want to prioritize pedestrians next to school in the morning, public transportation on certain arterials, emergency vehicles, or even commercial fleets, like you name it. And in a click of a button, it's now all doable. From that point on, the system is operating completely autonomously in order to increase the grid efficiency, but also to implement those policies on the street level. It starts with our data collection sensors that collect data in a human eye level of all the objects that are approaching to the intersection, calculating the ETA, calculating the speed, position, type of the object, etc. 24/7, day and night, summer and winter, whatever. And all this data is being sent to the connected edge compute device that receives the data from the sensors. It also receives the data from the nearby intersection through the cloud. And while it's taking into consideration what the city's policy, what the city would like to achieve, it's running a very complex algorithm that calculates millions of scenarios in every given second and deciding about the next best step to do, considering all this data and constraints. So perhaps the easiest analogy to this will be, think about a chess game that the system is playing all the time, 24/7, considering millions of possible moves and all the time doing the next best move. And then you have another huge chess game in the cloud that's playing chess between all the intersections to not just optimize the intersection locally, but also to optimize the entire network. Now, for the first time, the system can also take into consideration any other source of information and data, such as data from connected vehicles, autonomous vehicles, applications, you name it. Take it into consideration when it's operating and managing the traffic flow, but also to export this information to various parties and share with them various interesting information. But it's not just about improving the traffic flow. The system can also detect various anomalies, such as accidents or incidents, etc., in real time. As you can see here, the system detected an accident in real time, and in a matter of a few seconds, it can dispatch the first responders to arrive to the scene as soon as possible, and providing preemption through the entire route, enabling the first responders to arrive to the scene as soon as possible and evacuate any kind of injuries to the nearby hospital. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the term golden hour, but about 70% of the fatalities happen at the first hour. So every minute counts when you're talking about traffic accidents, and providing those vehicles the ability to arrive to the scene as soon as possible and get to the hospital as soon as possible is super crucial in terms of actually life and death. But we even took it further, and our system can also share information with the traffic light itself of what the vehicle is, or what the traffic light is doing or about to do, or even safety critical information, such as the demonstration that you see here. The system can also complement blind spots for drivers that's approaching to the intersection, telling to the driver that he is in a cause of collision with a vehicle that he cannot even see, right? In this scenario, what we've done is we've demonstrated how the system can detect a vehicle that's running in a high speed and about to run the red light, and it alerted the driver that came from the other approach that he's in a cause of collision, enabling or allowing the driver enough time to stop in advance before he will be involved in an accident with a vehicle he cannot even see. By the way, this is true for a lot of events and accidents that happen at intersections. If we're talking about pedestrians that are jumping into the road, various types of other mobilities, etc. Signalized intersections are one of the most problematic places on the road when we're talking about safety, since about 40% of the accidents happen at intersections. The last thing I want to share is a case study that we've conducted with Maricopa County, one of the most advanced counties in terms of traffic management in the US. We deployed our technology, our platform, next to the one of the most advanced solutions in the market. And for the first time, we kind of did a head-to-head demonstration, right? On the first period of time, we collected the data of how long vehicles and pedestrians are waiting. And on the following period of time, we started to operate the traffic flow, and we saw, or we demonstrated that we can concretely reduce the delay time of vehicles by more than 50%, and the delay time for pedestrian by more than 22%. And if you look at the numbers at the bottom, which are quite phenomenal, you can see the countywide annual projections for the delay that we eliminated, emission reduction, and the economic benefit that can be generated. So obviously traffic has a huge impact on all of us lives. This is quite exciting to see this kind of impact. I'm proud to share that today we are serving more than 1 million drivers per day, working with some of the largest DOTs across the US, such as the state of California, the city of Phoenix, the city of Chandler, and others, and collaborating with some of the largest companies out there, such as AT&T and NTT, etc., to scale our operations, support our operation, etc. So that's about us in a high level, and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, either put them in the chat, or you can just kind of raise your hand and we'll call on you. Tal, that's a great presentation. How long has this company been around, by the way?
About 3 years. But we're working 7 days a week, 24/7. So it's equivalent.
I was going to say, you guys have accomplished quite a bit in 3 years. Even just, sort of not just the AI, but the edge computing and how all that works. So a couple quick questions. Since you, in fact, are the director, actually, you're the co-founder and CEO. That's right. So,
yeah, sorry.
So my question to you is, what's the sales model here? I mean, it is so clear that anybody who's driven in any kind of a city in the United States, at least I can say for myself, who used to drive in New York City, we could use this like yesterday. So the question is, what's the sales process? How do you make something like this happen? That seems like a interesting opportunity.
Great. So It's actually quite interesting as well, because I guess that everyone are familiar with the model of SaaS, of software as a service, and also most of the people here are familiar with just selling hardware components. And in the last few years, there is a new model that kind of developed that's called hardware-enabled SaaS, which means that today we can deploy sensors in the middle of nowhere that's connected to the cloud and have strong compute power. That basically allow us or give us the ability to provide a SaaS, software as a service, to the customers, but at the same time to run it on our own proprietary hardware. And it's have a lot of advantages because it's scalable, the same as SaaS. It provides us the ability to provide updates and upgrades and over-the-air support, etc. And on the same time, it's actually enabling many things, for example, communication, right? So there is no communication in most of the intersection. Now it's being connected. Or a lot of various other advantages that being enabled through this kind of advanced hardware. The point is that we are providing, let's call it, a lot of applications that we can activate per on demand. So if you look at the industry today, it's mainly driven by a lot of standalone hardware components. You have a hardware component for every different solution. If you're talking about emergency vehicle preemption, transit signal priority, all these kind of things. I'm going to use an equivalent again, but if you remember about 10, 15 years back, we had a lot of cool gadgets in our house. We have like a compass, and we have calculator, and we have flashlight, and all those crazy devices. And today we have this, and we don't need those devices anymore. And it's not just for today, it's also for future applications that we can simply download tomorrow. So this is exactly the model that we are implementing here, providing one piece of hardware that on top there is a whole layer of application that can be activated on demand for the customer.
Right. Another question coming in from Amy. Do your customers or the cities itself, as you're selling this, as you're talking to them, do they have any sort of IT security concerns? I mean, cameras are happening more and more in public. How are you working with them to kind of alleviate any concerns about security?
So we are collaborating with some channel partners and strategic partners. At the end of the day, cities, DOTs, at the city, the county, and the state level are operating the infrastructure, so they are users/customers. In terms of security, with any new technology, there are security concerns, specifically when we're talking about AI and cloud, etc. So there are always concerns, and it's our job to address it and to make sure that everything is safe and have the right certifications and layers of security to make sure that it will be safe to use.
Great. We have a question from Asaf who says, are you able to use this for public transportation prioritization? And are US clients requesting that?
Yeah, so the world is going through a whole transformation in terms of mobility. Public transportation prioritization, emergency vehicle preemption, freight priority, a lot of use cases that are now becoming more and more popular, and we see it from a lot of agencies. And the nice thing about this kind of technology is that we can prioritize anything that the user wants. Let's say that the user would like to prioritize tomorrow snowplowers or only green vehicles. I don't know, you name it. We can simply add those constraints to the algorithms and now tell the system, please prioritize, only this type of vehicle or whatever.
Interesting. So my question is, it sounds also like you're connecting up with emergency providers so that they also, so at the end of the day, when you sell this, who is it that actually is looking at that platform all day or accessing that platform? Is it police? Is it the traffic people? Is it the medical, the fire people, the emergency help?
Yeah, so we don't really need people to look at this. What we have, we establish our own operations center where we have our people that when the system is triggering an automatic alert, they are looking at the alert and alerting the city themselves. So it's our job to work for the city and to make their life easier and their operational aspect much more simpler and seamless. But the entire process is completely automated.
Okay.
So in a lot of the cases, even the large cities that have traffic management centers, etc., in some cases, for example, they are not operating in the weekend. And then what? right? So we have a 24/7 constant support, 7 days a week, complementing for most cities that do not have TMC, so giving them the ability to know what's going on, and also complementing for the TMC that are not operating at some point, sometime, give them again the same service when they are offline in a way.
Terrific. Well, we thank you for your time. What a fascinating company. I can't believe what you've accomplished in 3 years. And look forward to maybe seeing you at a city nearby. We also always are interested in what we can do to help you enter our world of Rhode Island. We certainly have a couple cities here that could use this, Providence being one of them. So we'll follow up with you after this. So thank you again, Tal. It was terrific.
Sounds great. And we are all the time looking for interesting collaborations from the city side and from the channel partners, etc. So if there is anything interesting, happy to connect. We have people actually quite close to you in Philadelphia.
Oh yeah,
not that far away.
Yes, they're not far. That's terrific. Yeah. Thank you
and
so
we
much.
And we are hiring. So if anyone is looking for a job, please look at our website.
Even better. All right, that's terrific. Thank you so much. Now, the next company we're going to hear from is Zencity, and it's Asaf Francis, who is the Director of Urban Policy and Partnerships. But before we get started, there might be a collaboration here because what Zencity is doing is really fascinating. They are pulling information from a city or an area or a town, and they're able to deliver insights back about what's going on in that city, town, et cetera. So if there's a pothole that they don't like on, Smith Street, you could actually use the work that we see here with NoTraffic maybe to fix that. Anyway, I'm just kind of making a collaboration joke. But Asaf, please take us away. I think what you're doing is quite interesting, and we probably need this now more than ever. So please move forward with your presentation for 10 minutes.
Okay, perfect. So first of all, thank you guys for having us. Thank you, Avi, and everybody for the connection of Fear and Annette for setting this up. And Tal, fascinating work, really, really interesting what you guys are doing. So as Annette mentioned, my name is Asaf Francis. I'm Zencity's Director of Urban Policy and Partnerships. I've joined Zencity 2.5 years ago. Before this, I was working for the city of Tel Aviv on the mayor's innovation team. I'm an urban planner by training. I studied urban planning in London at University College London. And a bit about the company. So this is us, maybe about a year ago. We've kind of grown since then. We're 70-something employees today, a startup based out of Tel Aviv. And on the cusp of International Women's Day, I'll also say that the majority of our employees are actually women, many of them in managerial positions. So it's always something that we're very, very proud of. So who is Zencity and what do we do? Let me just see, hold on,
As a local government leader, you are constantly listening to the community you serve in order to make decisions that impact their lives. But how can you be sure that you're making the right decision if you're mostly hearing from the same people, an involved and loud minority? While their engagement is important, you want to be sure that your decisions also represent the silent majority of your community, those who don't engage with you directly, but voice their opinions online. So how can you ensure you're hearing this feedback? This is where Zencity comes in. Zencity helps local governments better understand the needs and priorities of their community. Working with hundreds of local governments of all sizes, we aggregate and anonymize resident discourse data from a variety of sources in real time. Designed specifically for local government, our dashboard allows you to dive into trending topics, manage your data around key issues, initiatives, or even agency departments, and examine changes over time. Using advanced AI, we conduct quantitative and qualitative analyses that generate valuable insights on your community's needs and priorities by recognizing sentiment, trending topics, anomalies, and more. With Zencity, you can make more data-driven decisions, track the performance of policies and actions, shape your messaging, and inform council decisions with real community data. By hearing your residents' voices and acting on their input, you can create a more trusting, connected, and engaged community. Connect to your data. Connect to your community. Connect with Zencity.
Right. So this pretty much sums it up, but I will go into a bit more detail. Okay. Here we go. So as the video mentioned, we're currently working with over 200 cities and counties. The majority of them are in the US. Some are also in Israel. And really, we're working with cities and counties of all sizes. So our biggest client is the city of LA. Our smallest is a village of Lemont, Illinois, of about 10,000 residents. And then we have everything in between in terms of sizes, in terms of areas across the country, not yet in Rhode Island. So we're definitely hoping to start working with some cities and counties there soon. But I think by now we're working in about 34 states. And so why are we here? We understand that state and local governments are very, very hard to manage, be it the day-to-day issues from, as Annette mentioned, fixing potholes, all the way to running smooth vaccine operations. And the majority of it also depends on how are we even measuring the success of the work, both on the state level, county level, and local governments, being cities, villages, towns, etc. So how do we know if we hit our targets or goals? What would be an attainable target for a city or county? We know when we're working, some of us here work for private companies. It's the bottom line, right? What's our ARR? What's our revenue, profit, income, etc. When it comes to cities, it's not always so simplistic. It's not always a clear bottom line. And at the end of the day, the target, the goal, the KPIs that cities, counties, states are working towards is the quality of life of their residents. But how do we measure that? We can run surveys, we can ask people, but how do we measure on an ongoing basis the quality of life of our residents? Are we actually fulfilling our goals? Are we hitting our targets? Part of it, it's done by feedback, right? So feedback from our community, constant feedback from our communities will let us know if we're on the right track, if we're hitting the right targets, if our residents are satisfied, if our residents are happy, if they're feeling safe, if they're feeling unsafe. How are they about their parks? How are they feeling about their community centers? But the feedback that we're usually getting, that cities are usually getting, is from a very, very small minority of vocal and important people that reach out, voice their opinions. But what about the rest of the community? How can we make sure that we're hearing from the majority of our communities, from the wider communities that we're serving? And the chatter is there. People are discussing. People are constantly talking about their quality of life. They might not be doing it directly with their city, with their council, with the county, or even with their state, but they are talking about it. So we've come to the conclusion and that the feedback is actually already there. That feedback that we're looking for to learn if we're on the right track is really already out there. And so the Zencity solution is pretty simple. We collect millions of resident-generated interactions from a multitude of sources. These could be social media, news media, city, county, and soon to be also state hotlines where residents are actively contacting their local government, and bring those through our AI-powered analysis. And I'll talk about this in a second. We collect them, we anonymize them, and we then generate actionable insights and a dashboard that really aggregates all that data in a very manageable, understandable way for city, county, state leaders to really take action and understand that they're on the right track with their policies, with their communications, and with their strategies around different issues. So how does our AI work exactly? So when an interaction comes into the system, we classify it according to different parameters. First will be the general classification by topic. Is it relating to public safety? Is it about public health? Is it about parks and recreation? After that, we'll even do a subcategorization. So are we talking about police? Are we talking about safety in parks? And so on and so forth. Next will be sentiment analysis. Is that interaction by that resident negative? Is it positive, or is it neutral? We can also detect anomalies. So if there's a spike in discourse about vaccines, for example, or masks, something that we all probably relate to and have seen constant chatter about online, we'll detect that and flag that to our client. And finally, we also geolocate about 40 to 50% of the data. So the city or the county can know which areas are residents discussing most. So we really allow you to move from data, unstructured data, to the dashboard into the insight. And I want to quickly run you through the dashboard. And I'll have people maybe quickly guess in the chat. In a small town, not small, medium-sized town in Connecticut, what is the #1 topic that was discussed over the last week? Was it public safety, local economy, public health, or education? So if you quickly could put your guess in the chat. Let's see what everybody's saying. See Amy saying education, health. I will wait for one more. Fear also thinks education. Okay, so, and Maya says health. So this is I think 140 resident size population, sorry, 140 resident size town in Connecticut. And as you can see here, public safety actually took the lead. 14% of the discourse was around public safety. And the way the dashboard works is quite simple. So you have the trending topics, what our residents been discussing, in this case, over the last 7 days, a popular word cloud, sentiment overview for the entire set of interaction, how much is neutral, what's negative, and what's positive. We'll get to projects in just a second, but down here, you can also see the interaction count. So how much of those total number of interaction for the past week is generated by local media, how much is by social media, and how much is by the city-specific hotlines. You can also see the score over time down here, and as I mentioned earlier, distribution of the data on the map. If you dive a bit deeper into this, you can also slice and dice the data. If I want to see for the past 30 days, I can quickly do that and see how that changes. So from, what was it, public safety taking the lead, political affairs actually took the lead if we're looking back on the last 30 days. I can also filter specifically by topic and look only around education, as some of us suspect it would be. And again, you can see down here the breakdown of the subcategories. I can go by sentiment and look specifically only on positive, negative, or neutral. I can change and look if I want to see only on official and unofficial channels. And this is something that I'll clarify quickly. Official channels are channels that the city, county, or state are managing, they're running, they have complete oversight over. Unofficial channels are the ones that they don't, where all the public information is continuously running, but they don't have a way to manage an oversight. And if you can see here, the majority of those for the past month have been from unofficial channels. You can see how the breakdown goes. Sorry?
That's great. I mean, we're going to actually have to kind of stop you here unless you got a couple more things real quick, but we want to get to Q&A.
Yeah, sure. So I will just quickly share that we've recently acquired another company that happened last week. And we now also offer statistically valid and representative surveys, some of the PR that went out around it. And yeah, we're looking forward to really work closer with the organizations here and hopefully with some cities, counties, and state departments in Rhode Island.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, so again, if anybody has any questions, please do let us know. So my question is, what is the business model here? How do you make money? How does that work?
So good question. We contract with the city. We usually work with the city manager's office, CIO or PIO's office, and the contract value usually changes by population size. So the bigger the city, obviously, the more interactions, the more data that we have to pull and constantly create insights from. So generally, that's the way the model works. It's a yearly subscription, and beyond the dashboard, cities, our clients get also insights, which are generated by our team of analysts, as well as some add-on services such as comparative insights or data to cities similar in size or within their state.
That's fantastic. So when it comes to who has access, I'm very curious. So when a city says, okay, let's go forward with this, you would think that this would be the kind of thing that if I'm running for political office, I'd love to have that information. It would be astoundingly great to know what people are talking about or how they're thinking. How do you keep it so that only certain people can see the data? How does that work?
It's a good question. We get that a lot. As I mentioned, we usually work with a professional tier level of local government, so city managers, etc. We do have commissioners, council members on, sometimes mayors, but the fact that we provide access to pretty much users across the city, first of all, enables everybody to have access to the data. The data is public, so we only do publicly available data. I don't mean that the dashboard is available to residents. Some cities do make it publicly available,
Yep.
But the entire data sets are only publicly available data sets. And
So Judy Shartner has a really good question, and,
Yeah.
and it makes a lot of sense to ask this question. It's like, so for a state of Rhode Island, we're not that big, but we have plenty of cities and towns that are big enough. We have Cranston and Newport and et cetera. Would it make sense for us to have one for the state? So we're hearing everybody from the state. We only have about 1 million people here. Or does it make more sense to do this on a city by city, town by town?
So to answer your question quickly, both. I think for the state level, different government tiers have different responsibilities. So the state's in charge of certain aspects of your life. Your city and your county each have different responsibilities. There are some overlaps, right? But for example, the city doesn't really care what's happening with the jailing system or with the court system. That's more on the county and state level, depending where you are. So there is a lot of value with having it on the city level. There is, again, value on the state level. And I will mention, we currently are looking for our early adopter on the states level.
Okay.
So be it state departments or the general kind of state agency, will be very happy to work on developing the product to fit.
Well, we are such a. Go ahead. Sorry, somebody was speaking.
I'll bring it up with once I have the recording with our state level.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a change in the governor, and I'm sure the new governor will be very interested in it. So we'll bring it to their attention.
Agreed. And we're kind of a perfect state for it because we're the smallest state. So you can kind of grab a hold of us.
Exactly.
So with that, anybody else have a final question here? We're about done on time, almost perfectly. So Asaf, it's great to meet you. And boy, you have a really interesting company there. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much.
It's very fascinating what you're doing. All right, last but not least, we have Balance. And Balance, we're going to take you into something a little different from the two that we were just working on in terms of gathering information and creating intelligence. In this Balance, Uriel Nachum, you're the co-founder of Invent It, and you're the co-CEO of Balance. And this is much more around enabling people that are actually in an ambulance. So if you'd like to go ahead and share your screen, Uriel.
First of all, thank you very much for being here. Thank you, Avi and Ophria. I have to admit that it's going to be my first pitch in English, so it's kind of a baptism of fire for me. So
you're doing well.
Okay, that's fine. So talking about Balance, taking me back a few years ago, I'm starting with a personal story, which actually was the trigger for Balance. So we were sitting in the backyard with friends, and everything was okay. The kids were inside playing on the computer, and I started to feel a real pain in my back. So my back is not that good. So I said, it's just a pain. But unfortunately, it became more and more strong. And I told my wife, sweetheart, I don't feel well. So I'm getting inside the house and I'm going to lay down on the recliner. And a few moments after, I just felt so bad. I felt a hard time to breathe. And I called my wife and I said, listen, I need you to call an ambulance. This is a real story. So she didn't understand what's going on. What happened to you? So I said, I don't feel well and I need you to call an ambulance right now. And when I said that, I feel that I am losing feeling in my two legs. And so she was calling the ambulance, and after a few moments, they got in the house and they took me. And when they saw me, they were sure that I'm having a stroke or a heart attack or something like this. And I remember that I told my wife, you know, you can follow us, but please do not speed up. Don't try to get us because we're going to drive very fast. It took me to Soraka Hospital in Beersheba. And the trip on that ambulance, it was my first trip. And I remember that as is today. I felt every stone on the road. When we got to the city, to Beersheba, I felt every bumps in the street, in the road. And I was thinking to myself, how come that there is nothing to observe the shocking? How come that I lie down on stretcher and there is nothing to observe the shocking of the way? So making a long story short, thank God, you know, I overcame that problem. Was a myelitis, was infection in my back, but thank God I'm okay now. But that was one of the triggers of our innovation balance. Balance actually, it's one of our innovation of our company, which is Invented. Invented actually, it's a company which provide technological solutions in few fields, in medical, in energy and agriculture. Another, you know, it was funny, but because when I spoke with Avi, we spoke about Softwheel. Softwheel is another innovation. I would say even the first innovation, which also came up, was born from experience, suffering experience of my partner. Invented was founded by my partner, Gilad Wolf, and me. But we are not talking about Invented or Softwheel. Actually, Softwheel today is a very successful company, worth about $4 billion. Don't worry, we didn't make so much money from that. As we say in Hebrew, the surgery was successful, but the patient actually died. So, but here we here today to talk about balance. What is balance? So our vision in balance actually allow efficient to quick life-saving treatment anywhere, anytime, in any condition. And in order to demonstrate the need of balance, I want you to see this slide. 1 second. Okay, I'm sorry. Skip that. Yes. Why balance is needed? I just want you to see the surgery room, the stability of a surgery room, and the instability of ambulance. So ambulance sometimes must be operates like a surgery room, but there is nothing to isolate the stretcher from the road from the ambulance. So basically, our solution is a system. It's a pneumatic system that actually start when the doors are closed. And balance isolated, the area of the stretcher is laid on through a pneumatic system. And this system actually observes both large and small jolts for the entire duration of the ambulance ride. The system is tailored to the condition of each patient. And I would like to explain that, because a shock observer will be only effective if it adjusts the patient weight. So therefore, the system has the ability to provide the optimum observed for each patient. So what we did already, so we had what I call a home test. We have in our company, we bought ambulance, Savannah, it's American ambulance, and we actually had few tests. And what we saw on these tests, the result demonstrate, as you can see, a significant reduction of the vibration, major jolts like a speed bumps and large potholes on the road, and a small bumps like a regular road on unpaved road. The system balance passed standardization in Israel, in the Technion. And what we received from our solution, the benefits of our solution. First of all, so you don't need to replace the stretcher. You use the same ambulance. You don't need to do anything with the stretcher. Also, balance the shock absorber adapted to each and specific individual condition, as I explained before. It's a specific for each person. Weight him and know exactly how to make the shock absorber exactly for what he needs in order to make it effective. Balance, minimize pain, and prevent a worsening of a various injuries. You can imagine what is to take a patient who passed a head injury or back injury. I'm not talking about the suffering, but think about his health condition. Yeah, as you know, ambulance has only one goal. The goal is to take the patient fastest to the hospital. They don't care about his condition. I would not say they don't care. Of course they care, but they don't care in terms of shock absorbers and about the road jolts. Of course, we have the competitive price compared to the benefit. The value or the price of this system, it's very low. And of course, we have a way to, we have the option to emergency stop, to naturalize when providing emergency care. So when they need to do something and the car must and the stretcher must be flat and not moving, there is a way to do that. Just talking about the numbers, the market, only in the States, there are more than 50,000 ambulances. The market size is about $70 billion. And of course, transportations, tens of millions of transportations every year. We actually, of course, our market is at the beginning, of course, is the States, and we targeting these relevant states because we found out they have more, of course, elder people and also more ambulances and more emergency transportations. There are EMS companies in the States. There are few. These are the largest. And how do we know that there is a problem? Of course, the first thing, beside my experience, my personal experience, of course, there are academics research, and in this research they show connection, a direct connection between a health condition and road jolts. And I'm not talking only on regarding like a severe situation, like as I mentioned, a journey or a back. So even if a person like me, I didn't have anything in my back serious. It was not a car accident. The fact that I feel every bump, it's really affect my health condition. Second, we have made a first-hand research, interviewed paramedics and doctors and ambulance staff and the MADA, the biggest organizations in Israel, the big organization in Israel, Magen David Adom. We sat with their directory, and they said that there is a real need for this kind of system. And of course, the pilot that we have made show clearly that there is a real effect of this kind of this system. We are.
And Oria, this is your last slide, right?
Of course, of our process. We built actually it's the fifth prototype. We passed the standardization in Israel. We have pilot in Israel. We have also, it's covered by patent. We're supposed to receive the PCT in a few months. And we are in a time that we need money in order to continue. And
Okay.
of course, later on, it's to have a pilot in the States and
Right.
a mass production. I would
Okay.
say, I'd like to say one more thing regarding
Okay.
the pilot in Israel. We stopped after the home pilot only because of the COVID-19. We were
Okay.
about to start a pilot with Magen David Adom, with MADA here in Israel, also in IDF. And also I would like to mention that we have two versions of our system. One is for American ambulances, and the other one is for the European ambulances. For example, the IDF has Mercedes, and this is a little bit different version of
Okay.
balance.
We're gonna stop you soon.
As I mentioned before,
Can you hear me?
Gilad Wolf and me basically
I don't think he can hear me.
founded, invented, and we have good stuff, small stuff.
We have to cut you. We have to cut you. Let Annette please
That's my
continue.
pitch.
I don't
and
think he
of
can
course,
hear
if you have
us.
question, I will take it.
Hi, Oriel. Can you hear me okay now? Hello? Can you hear me? Oriel? Can you hear?
I don't think he hears you.
I don't think he hears us. And you know, he had problems in the beginning, but what a great
I don't hear
presentation.
anybody.
Oh,
hear
he can't
me?
hear us. Okay, well, listen, I will say this to Oriel, who cannot hear us. Wow, what a way to start a presentation. Certainly having something personal like that.
I'm sorry, but I can't hear anybody.
I
Why is
know.
that? Okay, maybe now?
Can you hear us now? Can you hear
No,
us now?
I can't hear.
No? Okay. I know, I'm sorry, but I was
You
just gonna
hear
say,
me?
what a stunning way to open a presentation with a personal experience like that. But we should probably just leave it at that because he can't hear us. It's
Yeah.
hard to ask questions, and we're right at time anyway.
Why I don't hear?
So what a great presentation, Oriel. I'm sorry you can't hear us. We'll follow up in email. All right.
Thank you, Annette.
Oriel.
Great
We're-
job, Avi, and everyone who presented. Great presentations, interesting companies, and hopefully we can continue to, strengthen this bridge, this relationship we have between Israel and Rhode Island.